Port Jervis, and welcome to the Port Connects Spotlight Podcast. My name is Andrew Murata, proud host of the podcast, and super excited, super thrilled today. You talk about Hall of Fame. You talk about Port Jervis royalty. Colonel Steve Banach here with us live on the podcast, coming to us from Kansas. Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Andy, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you having me on the show, and really look forward to it.
Lots to talk about, lots happening. Colonel Banach is being inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame this weekend, Stillwater, Oklahoma. Steve, again, there's a lot to talk about, but let's start with that. What an accomplishment. Certainly a big round of applause from us here in Port Jervis. What does that mean to you this coming weekend with this accomplishment?
Well, the first thing is that, there's so many people, poured into me. So many people made a commitment that, allowed me to progress in my career. And without their help, it doesn't happen. But, taking a step back from that, I will just tell you that it's God's plan. We're Ed, Lou, and I. We will be the first family that will have three family members actually in the Hall of Fame for the first time.
Wow!
I'm hopeful in the coming years that the Smith family will join us with Leroy being added, with his brothers there, and I'm sure that's going to happen. But at the end of the day, it's God's plan. As many people know that have read, as you have, Andy, read Uncommon Bonds: A Journey in Optimism. I mean, Ed, Lou, and I, Ed and Lou were 3 and I was 4 when our house burned down in December of 1963, and we were homeless. So the tagline for all this could be "Homeless to the Hall of Fame." And that's a God wink to all of us, because when you're homeless, and you're sitting there in the basement of that church in Lafayette, New Jersey, and watching your family members, one by one, being taken away and being placed in adoptive homes, you're in a state of disequilibrium. We're really not sure what's going on in your life. We obviously didn't have anything economic, from an economic standpoint. We had nothing. So it's a real testament in terms of what the Lord God can do with people. Every single person matters. Every life matters, because God's got a plan for all of us. My identity, Ed and Lou's identity, is in the Lord Jesus Christ, and we firmly believe that it's His plan. He established these uncommon bonds. This is what we named the book, Uncommon Bonds, and He put us on this journey in optimism. And it still continues today, in induction into the Hall of Fame, is another data point on our journey. And I'm thrilled to do it. And one of my biggest regrets, if there is one, is I won't have the opportunity, and I think it's really impossible to have an opportunity to thank everybody that poured into you, along the way. So, but we're thrilled and really excited to see old friends and thank who we can.
And then here in Port Jervis, Steve, we're extremely proud, again, you and your brothers, and the history and all the accomplishments. There's a definite discipline in your life, Steve, all the things you've accomplished, from the athletic wrestling to your career in the military. Talk to me about that discipline that you developed and maintained throughout your life. Where did that come from? Was it a one-time experience that you learned something really hard? Was it over a journey of growing up? Where did that discipline come from that has carried you to so many of these places around the world, and accomplishments and awards and things?
Well, I think it's really twofold. One, I think it's innate. I think it's the very environment we grew up in. We had to, go get eggs, out of the chicken coop, when we were with our parents to eat. And so, it was, you never complained about anything when I was growing up. And you you really valued everything that you got, and so you learn to work hard and pull your weight right from the get go, and then that's the first piece, just the upbringing, and going through what I'll call the furnace of affliction there early on, and then it was amplified. It was amplified by just incredible coaches. We write in Uncommon Bonds, A Journey and Optimism about the 7 coaches we had that, Phil Chase and, Eddie Polanis and, Dave Simmons and Mark Fowler and Coach Biglione and, Mr. Witherow. And there's one other there I'm drawing a blank on and missing, maybe Mr. Romeo. But those coaches, many of them were our teachers. So in Mark Fowler's case, he did amazing things for Ed Lou and I. I put him at the apex of, that coaching group in terms of just how much he poured into us and, his time, his personal, blood, sweat and tears. When we won, he was joyful with us. And when we lost, the moments that we did, suffer loss, he was crying for us, he was an older brother, in many ways, for us. But, so just a little case in point, he taught me math 3 years in a row. So, if I didn't do well on my math homework, I ended up wrestling Mark Fowler that night in practice, when it was wrestling season. So, he'd hand me my paper. He said, you should have done better. We're wrestling tonight, those kind of comments, and so I'd go in the wrestling room and, he'd beat the snot out of me and, said, you need to do better on your math homework tonight. So, well, if you took it easy on me, I'd have more energy to do my math homework there, Mark, But we had the best coaches. They believed in every kid there, and it didn't matter what your economic status was. If you were, to your point, Andrew, if you were willing to work and give it your best, I mean, they were right there with you. Nobody tolerated quitters. I mean, if you started, you had to finish. Kind of thing. And we were just blessed by the leaders that we had that really genuinely cared for the young men and women that were put in and entrusted to their care.
Steve, when did you know you were pretty good at this? Like, hey, I could really go somewhere with this. Part of this alumni thing I've been doing this year, I've met so many wonderful alumni where they shared kind of how they went towards their passions. When was it in there that you said, "Hey, I'm really good at this. I could do something with this"? When and where was that?
Yeah, I think it was the summer of my sophomore going into my junior year. I wrestled 134 varsity my sophomore year. Had a pretty good year, above average. But it was at that point where I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting the hang of this, and this may be the vehicle to get a college scholarship. And and I think it was similar for Ed and Lou. Might have been a year earlier for them. Lou, quite honestly, my sophomore year. And actually, Lou's sophomore year, he did not make our wrestling team.
Wow.
And then his junior year. So think about this: he couldn't make our team when he was a sophomore. His junior year, he was state champion.
It's like Michael Jordan not making the team.
Well, he had the biggest physical growth and development of the three of us.
Wow.
He went from 135 pounds to 180 over a summer.
That's a lot of eggs from the coop.
Yeah, and he was lifting weights, and he was benching unbelievable amounts of weight and curling and shoulder pressing, and we had some plastic weights at home that we would everything was a competition. Walking to school was a competition. Everything was a race, and you had to be first, between the three of us, and so it was, it was very competitive. It was a lot of fun, but yeah, I think for me it was sophomore to junior. I think Lou, when he was just destroying people, his junior year, my senior year. And Ed and Lou were like, "What happened to him?" We called him the Incredible Hulk there for a while. That show was popular, and and then of course Ed was a little steadier than us. He was very good as a freshman. He had his 7th and 8th grade year, and those 2 years under his belt. He was ready to wrestle varsity as a freshman.
Wow!
He finished 5th, 2nd, and 1st at the state the next 3 years of sophomore through senior year. So, yeah, he was gifted, and at the end of the day, 4-time national finalist, 3-time champ, and Olympic gold medalist, and so yeah, but none of that happens. None of that happens without the coaches. And again, I'm going to take another step back on this. None of that happens without my father, Warclaw Banach, and my mother, Genevieve Banach, without them getting us to the United States. My father was a Polish soldier. He got shot in his right trapezius muscle, right by his neck, at the base of his neck. And the round went in one side of the trapezius and went out the other side, and had a pretty horrific exit wound. He got stitched up. Pretty gruesome medical work, if you ask me. I saw it when I was a little kid. He would hold me in his right arm, and my head would hang over the shoulder, and you see this gruesome hole in the back of his neck there. And so he got wounded October, November of 1939 when the Germans invaded Poland. And it was mass conscription. Everybody grabbed a rifle and fought the Germans. So he got wounded, got taken as a POW, was put on my mom's farm in Germany to help with the crops. And my mom was about 9 or 10 years younger than him, and she took care of him. And she, helped him heal up, and eventually fell in love with him. And because she fell in love with the enemy. She got put in an indoctrination camp, and then he went on a string of these detainments in these POW camps. His last camp that we have on record, and my 2 daughters wanted to understand what their grandfather did, and
wow.
They found he was released from Dachau at the end of World War II, and so when you look at the DNA, my mother and father both survived being prisoners of war. My mom in a Nazi indoctrination camp, my dad in POW camps like Dachau. That, going back to your first comment, how did you learn how to be so disciplined? I think it's in the DNA. I think mom and dad both had it, and then of course Alan and Stephanie Tooley. After our house burned down in December of '63, we lost the family. I never saw my father again. He died, I think, in 1978, around 67, 68 years old, something like that. And then my mom was, interned medically because the World War II just destroyed her. And so Alan and Stephanie Tooley thankfully adopted us and took good care of us. They were awesome. And we were really happy. Ed and Lou and I talk about it. We're really happy that we are able to, do well in athletics. I think that boosted, mom and dad's, perception on life, and it gave them a lot to cheer about. And again, you thank those who poured most into you, and our parents certainly did, as well as our coaches. And, I can't say enough about our friends. I think I'm going to see David Ferris down at the ceremony here on Friday, Saturday, and I mean, David was kind of the alpha among all the senior guys that played on the football team, and he exhibited such fantastic leadership as a young man, and consequently, he subsequently he went on to West Point and graduated there in '81, had a fantastic military career as well. Nicky Nicolette, I mean, I could go on. There was a ton of guys that. Ernie Jackson, a lot of these guys that, as peers, you kind of looked up to him. It's a little bit competitive. Hey, I want to be as good as him, but it was all real positive in a positive way. That's the thing about Port Jervis. The adults there, the teachers, the coaches, man, it was all about team ball. Helping one another out, doing things the right way. I think of my coaching with Eddie Palanis, Mr. Palanis. He was phenomenal. And I love the guy. I was scared out of my mind, with Mr. Palanis, but man, I really admired him, and Joe Biglione too. There was a noble-mindedness about all our coaches and our teachers. I mean, people, and just pass this on. People carry themselves with a lot of dignity and respect. They brought the hammer when they needed to bring the hammer in the classroom or on the playing field or on the wrestling mat. But one thing you could always count on is they were going to do the right thing. They really were, and they were going to treat you as a young adult and do their job of making sure that you could go out and be, an effective citizen in the United States of America.
Beautiful, Steve. A lot of people watching live here. Our superintendent, Dr. Bell, sends his best wishes and is thrilled that you are being inducted there. Steve, let's turn towards college. You were the captain at Clemson University as a freshman. You chose Clemson. Talk to me about your decision to go to Iowa and be part of the incredible teams there with your brothers. Tell me about that decision to make that change.
Yeah, well, I got recruited by a number of schools coming out of high school, and a lot of that was, the great work of Mark Fowler. I mean, he sold me and my two brothers on a lot of universities, man, and we're very thankful for that. And so Wade Chalice was a pretty prominent wrestler, in the 72 to 1977 timeframe when I was getting recruited. He was a couple of rungs below Gable, but very competitive, and a name brand guy in the sport, and kind of like David Taylor and some of these other guys that you see now, and Spencer Lee and all that, and so, I met, flew down to Clemson, met Wade. It was warm in South Carolina all year, pretty much. There was no snow. And so I was thinking about that. But Wade, recruited a pretty good, initial class. We were standing up a program there. And he brought in some really nice recruits from New Jersey, New York, Ohio, California, and we actually had a pretty good team in our first year. And then Ed and Lou got recruited by a number of people from the University of Iowa. Eventually, Gable flew out there and met with them, and they both decided to go to the University of Iowa. So after my first year at Clemson, in the summer between my first year at Clemson and my second year, I went out to Iowa with Ed and Lou, and spent about 6 or 7 weeks out there wrestling with the Iowa wrestlers. And what I saw blew me away, and I was like, okay, Ed and Lou are walking into something that's absolutely going to be a meat grinder. This is totally unprecedented. This is not Port Jervis wrestling or New York State wrestling. I mean, this is like, my time out there. I don't think I scored a point for about the first 30 days. And again, you worked out every day. I don't think I scored a point. Neither did Ed and Lou probably for about the first 30 days we were out there, because you were wrestling, Olympians and world team members, world team champions, national champions, All-Americans. It was. I mean, the room was just incredible, and and so towards the end of my time out there, I was like, I am going to leave Clemson. I'm going to wrestle at Clemson this year. I'm going to leave Clemson. I'm going to come up here because I could see Ed doing very well. I could see him shouldering the storm that was coming, and the trials that were coming. And but I thought Lou would struggle a little bit, because Lou's a phenomenal human being, incredibly capable, and intellectually, and also obviously athletically, the most athletically gifted one of all three of us. I mean, he's just a freak of nature. But Lou's got he's a thinker, and he realized early on in life that there's a lot more to do than just play sports and wrestle. And so I could see with him dropping from 210, at that point 210 down to 190 all through the year with this competition, that this could be hard for him to do. And so I left Clemson after my second year there. I placed second in the Atlantic Coast Conference at 190, and transferred up to Iowa. I walked on. I had a scholarship at Clemson, paid my way that first year there at Iowa, and then Dan Gable put me on the same level of scholarship that Ed and Lou were on, and which paid for everything. And it was that way my rest of my time there. But I did it because I didn't want Ed or Lou to fail, and I thought the three of us together would be a little bit it's the uncommon bonds thing, that we'd be able to shoulder this burden a little bit better, which then led Lou quit the team in January. It was January 1980. Ended up joining ROTC. Stayed in school, did his academics, did very well, but I went from 210 up to about 235. Was bench pressing like 410, and just turned into this incredible athlete, but he joined the ROTC program, and he got connected with Lieutenant Colonel Mick Bartlemy there, and looking at getting a commission as a lieutenant in the Army, which he eventually did in the Adjutant General Corps. But it got me introduced to Mick Bartlemy because Mick and I were kind of coaching and mentoring Lou, along with Jay Roberts, who was an attorney in Iowa. So Lou had a little network of people that were trying to work with him to get him back on the wrestling track. And over that time, I got to know Mick Bartlemy very well, and he ended up recruiting me to join the Army. And in that process, a year-long process, I said, yeah, I've always wanted to serve, always. And and I think one of the things that I've come to believe is that what does it mean to be an outstanding American? To serve your country. And again, you don't need to join the Army or any of the services. There's a lot of different ways to serve your country, serve your community. Give of your time and your talents and your resources. Make a difference in somebody's life. The other thing that I've learned is that when I give, I'm actually living at the highest level. So living to me is giving, and when I'm doing that, I'm performing at my highest potential, using the skills that the Lord gave me, and that's really important. I think it sets an example. I go back to the noble-minded thing. The United States. What I've also learned over time is that we have the best country in the world. There is no doubt about it. We have some of our our problems, far less problems in terms of their severity than a place like China, Russia, North Korea, or Iran. where you get killed for disagreeing with the with the emperor or the president or whomever. And so we have the best system in the world. But it's a meritocracy. One thing that Ed Lou and I did is we worked for everything we got. And there's a sense of pride that comes with that, that you achieve it, but also it's accompanied with a deep appreciation for everybody who helped you along the way, because nobody does it by themselves. Nobody. And the people that may think that way couldn't be any further off the mark.
Beautiful picture here in the book, Uncommon Bonds here. Incredible story. So many stories of your childhood. We were joking off air. You're lucky you survived Montague, let alone 30 years in the Army.
Yeah.
But Steve, you talk, serving your country 27 years in the Army with 4 more additional in a leadership role as a civilian. Incredible journey through 9/11, through multiple combat tours and all of that. Talk to me about what it meant for you to serve in the Army, your career, and you look back at all the accomplishments. What does it mean to you now?
Well, I will just tell you this right up front. My wife Margie and my 3 children also served. I had 6 deployments to various combat zones, and just the little story up front to put this in the right context. I missed 4 Thanksgivings in a row at one point in my career, and 2 back-to-back Christmases.
Wow.
And so after the 4 Thanksgivings and the back-to-back Christmases where I was gone to Afghanistan and to Bosnia the year prior, one of my children, I think it might have been Audrey. She asked my wife Margie. She goes, "Isn't Dad supposed to be home for Christmas?" And and of course my wife says, "Yeah, but Dad's doing important things overseas." And then it got to the point where one of my other daughter, Marilyn, asked or told my wife Margie that Dad's been gone so long I forgot what he looks like, and so my wife got like 8.5 by 11 pictures of me and framed them and put them next to the kids' beds, so they can remember what Dad looked like. So all that separation, my wife, she did a phenomenal job. We had 5 Rangers killed and 32 wounded. And my wife was, the Ranger Battalion commander's spouse. And so she's in the loop on all those casualty notifications. And once the military leaves, it's the spouses that go and comfort the person who just lost their loved one or whose loved one was injured. So I don't look at it, from a service perspective as me serving. Our family served, and we gave it 110%. We did the best we could. And situations like 9/11, the Lord prepares you for a time such as this. And it was a no-fail, requirement for the country. We were the Ranger Ready Force 1 Battalion, which means you deploy on 18 hours. Notice in the event of a national emergency, which certainly 9/11 was. And so from 9/12, through the middle of January of 2002, we were myopically focused on planning to, a combat parachute assault in Afghanistan on 19 October 2001 in Helmand Province to the south in Afghanistan, and then fighting in Afghanistan before we came home, in middle of January there. And so, so that was a no-fail mission. It was the first time that mission was ever done successfully in combat. The 24 April 1980 Iranian hostage rescue was the mission profile that we executed. And of course, that failed. We had a number of service members killed, number of aircraft destroyed. But we got the call and we did it successfully. So, point on all that is when it's your time to step up, step up. God's not going to give you more than you can handle. So when there's somebody who needs help, just translating this into civilian life, when somebody who needs help, and you got the help, step up. It's like I said about the living is giving, and there's no better gift to lead through service. To lead is fundamentally to serve, and that's what I tried to do. I tried to lead through my service, and I think our family did that as well.
Well, we thank you here the day after Memorial Day, listening to the lives lost and certainly our military service. If you're watching the show live, please jump in and say hello to Colonel Banach and leave him a comment there. Steve, again, from the mat, so much time at Port Jervis schools, Iowa, wrestling, all that. What are some lessons that you took from wrestling to your life in the military, to your life with your family, that you took with you that helped you on that road?
Yeah, so number one, I'm really glad that our ladies are now able to wrestle. And for this reason, there isn't. I don't think there's a better analogy, a better metaphor than wrestling for what you have to do in your life. You think about it. You get up. You get dressed. You go to work. Kind of the corollary to standing in the center of the mat. You're doing a task. Are you successful or do you fail? And if you have success, how do you handle success? If you fail, how do you handle losing? How do you handle a failure? And that's what wrestling taught me. Lot of highs, a lot of great accomplishments, a lot of really, really neat experiences. And you need to learn how to handle success. All right. Humbly and many times, certainly on team sports, like that wrestling is, there's an individual component. And this is why it's so good. There's an individual component, but there's a team component that you might have won. Yes. But the team won. Right. And so, the focus on the team is always optimal. In the work world, in the business world, you might have done something really, really well, but the news flash is you didn't do it by yourself. There were other staff that helped you. You might have been the person in charge of the project. The guy out on the mat or the gal out on the mat that won the match. You might have done a really good job on your part of the project, but at the end of the day, the corporate team, we all on the team put this together and made it happen. And so it's what life's all about. And when you lose, how do you pick yourself up on the job and maintain a real positive attitude and will things into existence, which is a lot of what we did at Port Jervis. When Mark Fowler took over our wrestling team, we were not a powerhouse. We were a good team, but that's no slight on anybody who came before us. But we all believed in what Mark was teaching us, and I tell you, the reason why we believed it is because Mark just thoroughly invested in all of us. A lot of things that people don't know. Mark had a green Land Rover, and after practice every night, because our parents worked, and a number of other guys on the team, their parents worked too. They couldn't come pick us up. We'd have been walking home in the dark. Mark would get 6 or 8 of us, every single night, load us up in his Land Rover, and he would make the loop. He'd drive us all home, and tell us, see you tomorrow. Look forward to another great day at school and good practice, and that's what he did. He took us. In 1976, Ed and Lou were sophomores. I was a junior. We were in Binghamton at the 1976 Olympic trials. Mark drove us up there with 2 or 3 other kids on our team, and we did the 1976 Olympic trials. We all won 2 matches, and we all lost 2 matches. We all beat somebody out of college, believe it or not, and we lost to a couple of guys in college. But we're up there in Binghamton, New York, at the Olympic trials, and it was a signal. Hey, we can do this. 2-2. You're coming out 2-2. That'll pump you up a little bit. That'll get you doing a couple extra reps in the weight room and a couple laps on the track and additional laps. And he took us out to introduce us to the United States Wrestling Federation in the national tournament. He went out to Iowa with us for a couple of years. Wow. So took us up to Rhode Island to our first wrestling camp. He did so many things, and that's why we believed in him. I mean, he was invested. He was all in, and and when you're given charge, over people, young people, old people, you got to serve, you got to be invested, and that's you got to make a lot of times you're making sacrifices. If you're serving, you're going to sacrifice. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But when at the end of the day, when you see the fruition of your work, when you see the good things that come out, when you see other people succeed, I mean, there's no greater feeling than that.
Wow, incredible to hear. Dr. Bell mentioning some more of your coaches there: Mike McCarthy, Ray Hollick, Bob Corvino,
yeah.
Incredible,
fantastic, all of them. And I tell you what. I loved all my coaches, but one of the guys that was another guy who was just incredibly invaluable to us was Ray Hollick. Because Ray didn't there was no room in there for sniveling. If you were out of line, Ray would get you back in line like in a nanosecond. Nobody wanted to cross paths with Ray. And I tell you, he was a phenomenal guy, a great friend, great sense of humor. He would laugh with you, joke around with you, but when he knew you were wrong, he made sure you were right. He made sure you were right, like real fast.
I love it.
And that's why I loved him. You didn't appreciate it when you were being made right, but looking back on it, you said, "What a knucklehead I was, man." But I'm really thankful for Ray, because he did it with all three of us. He did it with everybody on the team, and I think the greatest compliment you can give, these coaches and our teachers is that they were respected. We respected them, and we gave them all the honor they deserved, most of the time. Yeah. And when we didn't, we heard about it. So, yeah.
And Mark will introduce you along with your son at the Hall of Fame induction this weekend.
Yeah. So Mark's going to cover the early years, our time together. Without Mark, Port Jervis probably doesn't happen, and the way it did, and it certainly, and my son Samuel is a wonderful young guy, and he's got one son, Graham, and his wife is fantastic. So Samuel's going to talk about our life together, and just very appreciative that was able to have a son, and he's a fantastic father right now, and it's all really, really good to see.
Beautiful, and congratulations again. Steve's induction is this coming weekend, Stillwater, Oklahoma, the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. And Steve, you'd be proud. We had incredible wrestling seasons. We have started a girls team here. We have phenomenal young ladies on the team, and their coaches are molding them now. And you'd be really proud of the Raiders and what they're doing here.
I tell you, that warms my heart. I'm really happy to hear that. And I tell you what, through Mr. Bell and others, Artie Trovey, I'm hearing just nothing but great things, coming out of Port Jervis. And I mean, it for us, it was such a neat place, such a formative, set of experience for us. And to hear that all these young people are going to have potentially better, situation than we had. Man, it's the way it ought to be, but it doesn't surprise me. it doesn't surprise me because of the people that, Andy, and it's kind of like what we talked about before we got on air, man. We have superstars that come out of Port Jervis, and impact the world in so many different disciplines.
Well, impact the world. You have done that locally, nationally, internationally, and we're extremely proud of you. Steve, there's a lot of kids here, maybe didn't grow up in the exact way like you, but maybe they don't have the economics or different struggles in their life. A lot of our teachers show the kids these podcasts in class. What message would you say to those kids, that athletic accomplishment or an amazing career in the military? What would you tell that kid that maybe doesn't believe that they can do some of the things that maybe you did? What message would you share?
Well, I'd start by, the most important thing. God didn't create anybody to fail. Although Ed, Lou, and I were homeless and everything like I described up front, God had a purpose and a plan for us. It wasn't maybe what most people would think success looked like, but we can't think like God thinks, and so have faith. God's got a plan for you. Keep your eye on your goal. Find other people that you can work with to achieve that goal, and work hard. And if you work hard, you do your best every single day, people will come around you and they will help you. That's been my experience. If you demonstrate initiative and you ask for help, a lot of times we asked for help. We asked Mark, if he could take us home at night because we didn't have a way to get home, and he did that for us. Don't be bashful. If you need help, ask for help. There are people in Port Jervis who will give you the help. You're guaranteed. And so it's it comes down to it really comes down in a larger sense to your identity. What is your identity? Mine is in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And I would just tell you, when I was 22 years old, we went to Catholic church when we were growing up. We got kicked out of Catholic school when I was in third grade. Ed and Lou were in second grade because we had too much energy for the nuns. I mean, we had those plaid ties and white shirts, and like the plaid ties were covered in blood stains because we get in fights and my mom, Stephanie Tooley, she didn't have the money to go out and buy new ties, so she just used shout, but it was blood stained, those ties and so the shirt was, Cloroxed and bleached and, but there was like a pink tint on her white shirt from the blood stains. And when the tie moved out of the way, it was the only white part of the shirt, and we had, tears in her pants and her knees, and the iron-on patches, there were so many iron-on patches they would fall off, and stuff like that. And so we got kicked out of Catholic church. But what I learned was that after going to Catholic, because we still went to Catholic service after the Catholic church, we ended up going to school in Montague, elementary school. And but what I learned was every 5 o'clock every Saturday was confession. And that was at a point in my life when I was 22 that I went to confession to talk to a priest, because I hadn't been to church in years. And I went to talk to the priest in confession, and I said, Father, there's got to be more to life than this. And there's that little mesh screen, and he turned his face towards me because all you could see was a silhouette of the side of his face. And he turned his face to me and he said, my son, there is. And he goes, do you know who the Lord Jesus Christ is? And I said, Father, I'm Catholic, so he goes, that's not what I asked you. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I think I do. And he goes, do you want him to be your Lord and Savior? And I thought for a minute and I said, yeah. I said, if he's gonna give me a better life, yes, I want that. And so I prayed, the believer's prayer with him, and I got saved at that moment. I went over into that confession booth. I was all alone when I walked over there. When I went home, I was not alone. I can't tell you why I felt that way, but I was not alone. And I'm telling you, from that point forward, my life fundamentally changed. It fundamentally changed. I was never that person. 6 weeks later, Lou asked me, "What the heck happened to you? You're not the same guy." And I told him, I said, "Lou, I'll never be the same guy."
Wow.
And I was a different guy for the better. And it put me on the, everything was kind of in a state of disarray before that day. And after that, it all just snapped in. It was perfect, alignment in terms of just doing one good thing after another and having these opportunities come. And again, you got to make the most of the opportunity. It's not an opportunity. It's a two-way deal. You got the opportunity comes. You got to do the hard work to actually realize the opportunity. And that's what I had an opportunity to do. And, all the people who worked with me up to that point prepared me for that moment.
Beautiful story, Steve. Thank you for sharing that. And you have made capital PORT the most of that opportunity. We're thrilled here in Port Jervis. I know you got to get rolling because you're literally leaving for your trip tomorrow. Again, if you haven't seen this, you haven't read it, there's copies floating around Port Jervis. It's on Amazon. But incredible stories here from Steve and his brother's backgrounds, and beautiful, well-written. Steve, so we're going to let you go. I know you got to get prepared. But before we do that, one more question for you. And this was great. We appreciate it. What does Port Pride mean to you?
It means a lot. When I think about, where I came from, there's some hard times, but when I think about where I came from, the town I came from, I just have nothing but really, really great thoughts it's all about the people, right? The people that I went to school with, my teachers, my parents, how we overcame so much, but and again, we're a little school, right? And 9,000-10,000 people in the town. But you look at the stuff that we were able to do, and not just on the athletic field. I mean, there's people that graduate Port Jervis and go off and have phenomenal careers. And so Port Pride means an awful lot to me. My heart is always in a really, really good place when I think about my upbringing there. And again, as I've said before, the names and the faces and the experiences that I had, throughout my time in Montague and in Port Jervis, just cycle through and very, very thankful for everybody that that I interacted with and had an opportunity to be befriend and to be a teammate with. So just incredibly indebted, and it's always great to get on the phone with somebody from Port Jervis and just relive old times, man. Those are absolute the highest high points of my day. I just did that with Artie Trovey, about a month ago, and we talked about the old days and and also seeing how he's doing and all that, and just that made my day, and I'll just I think that's the best way to kind of sum it up. Those kind of conversations just make your day.
Steve Banach, everybody, thank you for tuning in live. Steve, thank you for the time. A tremendous congratulations to you and your family, and thank you for sharing your story today. I know you got to go get packed, so I'm sure you'll have some gold with you, but if you could work some black and red into your outfit for the induction ceremony, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, roger that. All right. Yeah, I got a bunch of red and white medals, man.
There you go. Steve Banach, everybody. National Hall of Fame induction this weekend, Stillwater, Oklahoma. Steve, we couldn't be prouder of you here in Port. So thanks for coming on, Steve. Can you give us a go Port before you head out?
Yeah, go Port.
Steve, stay on the line for a moment. We're going to sign off here on the podcast. If you are in touch with incredible alumni, Steve mentioned so many people today that I'll be reaching out to for the podcast. But we are going to be starting an alumni association. We do want to connect all of those people out there, not only to help each other, but to help our current students to be able to make those connections. So that's coming to a theater near you, Steve. Enjoy the weekend, and thanks again for some time here today.
Thank you, Andrew, and thanks to everybody who dialed in here today. It's been my pleasure to have grown up in Port Jervis, and I look forward to the next trip back there.
Hall of Famer Steve Banach. Steve, stay on the line in a second. We're going to sign off here on the podcast. Keep showing your Port pride, everyone, and thanks for tuning in.